6-month-old baby couldn't move. Then his puppy did something that changed everything. Listen to this incredible story and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to share it with others and spread the love. The night was thick with storm clouds, the wind howling through the trees as rain lashed against the windows. Emma curled up on her couch, a warm cup of tea in hand, trying to unwind after a long shift at the hospital. The exhaustion of the day pressed heavily on her shoulders, her eyelids growing heavy. Then, bang, 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 bang. The sharp knocking jolted her upright. It was frantic, urgent, nothing like the casual tap of a neighbor stopping by. Her heart leapt into her throat. Who would be knocking at this hour, in the middle of a storm? For a moment she hesitated. The logical part of her brain warned against opening the door to a stranger. But something deeper, something instinctual, urged her forward. She carefully set her mug down, tightening the blanket around her shoulders as she stepped toward the door. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it, the wind immediately forcing it open. The storm surged inside, icy air rushing over her skin, but nothing compared to what she saw next. A woman stood there, drenched to the bone, her dark hair plastered to her pale face. She shivered violently, her lips quivering, her eyes wild with desperation. But it wasn't just her that caught Emma's attention. It was the bundle she cradled in her trembling arms. A baby. Emma's breath caught in her chest. The woman clutched the infant as if the wind might snatch him away. The child was wrapped in a thin, faded blanket, completely inadequate against the storm. Emma's instincts kicked in immediately. Whoever this woman was, whatever had brought her to this doorstep, this baby was in danger. "Please," the woman whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. Her eyes glistened, filled with something between grief and surrender. "I can't take care of him anymore. He deserves better." Emma's chest tightened. She opened her mouth to speak, to ask the dozens of questions flooding her mind. Who are you? What's happening? Why here? But before she could say anything, the woman acted. She thrust the baby into Emma's arms. Emma instinctively caught the child, cradling him against her chest as if he had always belonged there. The woman's hands trembled as she shoved a crumpled note into Emma's fingers, her eyes darting behind her as if afraid someone was watching. Then, before Emma could stop her, she turned and ran. "Wait," Emma called, stepping forward into the rain, the icy drops stinging her skin. "Come back! You can't just—" But the woman was already disappearing into the darkness, her thin frame swallowed by the storm. Emma stood frozen, her breath coming in shaky gasps. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she turned her gaze downward. The baby nestled against her, unfazed by the chaos. His tiny face was serene, his breath soft and steady despite the biting cold. A lock of fine hair peeked out from under the damp blanket. He smelled faintly of milk, of warmth, of innocence. Who was he? A tremor ran through Emma's fingers as she lifted the note. The ink, blurred by rain, was barely legible, but the message was clear. His name is Noah. He was born with a rare condition that has left him paralyzed from the waist down. I tried. I really did. But I can't give him the life he deserves. You are a good person, a kind nurse. I saw you at the hospital. You took care of me, even when no one else would. I know you can take care of him. Please, love him the way I wish I could have." Emma's legs nearly gave out. Tears blurred her vision as she clutched Noah closer, shielding him from the storm. She had always dreamed of becoming a mother, but never like this. Never with a baby handed to her in the middle of a raging storm, his mother vanishing into the night. She felt an ache deep in her chest. A part of her wanted to chase after the woman, to demand answers, to fix this. But another part, one even stronger, knew the truth. Noah was hers now. She swallowed hard, rocking the tiny bundle gently. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I've got you now." The wind howled, the storm raged on, but inside, against Emma's chest, Noah slept soundly. And from that moment on, he was her son. But late at night, when the world outside was quiet and Noah was tucked safely in bed, Emma allowed herself to feel the weight of it all. The doubts, the fear of failing him, the overwhelming responsibility of being both mother and father to a child with special needs. It pressed on her like a heavy storm cloud, one she had to constantly push away. Then, one fateful evening, exhausted from another grueling shift, something unexpected happened. A faint rustling near her doorstep made her pause. At first she thought it was the wind, but then she saw it, a small, quivering shape curled up near the porch steps. A dog. The poor creature was barely more than skin and bones, his fur caked with mud, his ribs jutting out beneath his matted coat. His eyes, large, dark, and filled with something that looked eerily like pleading, locked onto hers. Emma's heart clenched. The rational part of her knew she had enough on her plate, another responsibility, another mouth to feed. How could she possibly take on more when she was barely keeping things together? Then, from inside the house, Noah's excited voice rang out. "Mommy!" He was already at the doorway, his little hands gripping the wheels of his chair, his face alight with wonder. "He needs us." Emma hesitated. She had told herself, over and over, that she couldn't save everyone. But then she looked at the dog again, shivering, exhausted, beaten down by life, and something inside her cracked. It was the same feeling she had when Noah had been placed in her arms that stormy night, the same instinct that whispered, "This is meant to be." And just like that, they became a family of 3. More than a pet. Emma named the dog Max, and from the moment he stepped inside their home, everything changed. At first, he was skittish, flinching at loud noises, shrinking away from sudden movements. It was clear he had been mistreated, abandoned, left to fend for himself. But Noah was patient. Every day, he would roll his wheelchair close, extending his tiny hand toward Max, whispering softly, "It's okay. You're safe now." And little by little, Max believed it. He followed Noah everywhere. When Emma set Noah in his wheelchair, Max would trot beside him, as if guiding his every move. When Noah played with his toys, Max would lie nearby, watching over him like a guardian. And at night, when Noah was tucked into bed, Max would curl up beside his crib, refusing to leave his side. It wasn't long before Emma noticed something else. Max was more than just a pet. One afternoon, as Noah was playing on the living room floor, trying to pick up a toy just out of reach, Emma saw Max do something incredible. Instead of waiting for Noah to struggle, the dog nudged the toy closer with his nose. At first, Emma thought it was a coincidence, but then, over the next few weeks, she saw it happen again and again. Max would fetch things for Noah, position himself so Noah could lean on him when reaching for something, even place himself near the wheelchair's wheels, as if making sure Noah never rolled too far. He wasn't just a dog, he was watching over Noah. But the moment that truly changed everything happened late one night. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the baby monitor on Emma's bedside table. She had collapsed onto the couch, exhausted from a long shift at the hospital and the endless demands of single motherhood. The past few months had been a whirlwind, learning how to care for Noah, managing his medical needs, and adjusting to life with Max, the stray dog who had become an inseparable part of their little family. Max, ever vigilant, lay curled at the foot of Noah's crib, his ears twitching at every small noise. He had developed a deep attachment to the child, rarely leaving his side. It was as if he understood that Noah needed extra care, as if he had chosen to be his guardian. Then something changed. A faint, uneven sound came from Noah's crib. A soft wheezing, barely audible. Max's ears perked up. He lifted his head, eyes narrowing as he listened more intently. Noah, usually a peaceful sleeper, let out a strangled gasp, his tiny body twitching. Max immediately sprang to his feet, his instincts kicking in. He let out a low whine, nudging the crib with his nose. But Noah didn't move. The baby monitor crackled. Max could hear Emma's soft breathing from the other room. She was asleep. Desperate, he let out a sharp bark. Nothing. He barked again, louder this time, his tail stiff, his body tense. When there was still no response, he jumped onto the couch, nudging Emma's shoulder with his snout. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Frustrated, Max let out a series of frantic barks, his nails scratching against the hardwood floor as he ran back and forth between Emma and Noah's room. The sudden noise jolted Emma awake. She sat up, heart pounding, trying to shake off the fog of sleep. "Max," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Then she heard. The barking wasn't random, it was urgent. That's when she noticed the baby monitor. Noah's breathing sounded wrong. Cold dread gripped her as she bolted toward his room. The sight that met her stole the breath from her lungs. Noah's face was pale, his lips tinged blue. His small chest struggled to rise and fall, each breath a labored effort. His tiny hands twitched weakly, as if his body was trying, and failing, to fight against something unseen. Emma didn't hesitate. She scooped Noah into her arms, her hands trembling as she grabbed the diaper bag with her free hand. "Come on, Max," she cried, racing toward the car. Max didn't need to be told twice. He leaped into the back seat as Emma sped toward the hospital, barely stopping at red lights. Every second felt like an eternity, the sound of Noah's ragged breathing filling the car like a ticking clock, counting down to disaster. "Hold on, baby," she whispered, her voice thick with fear. "Just hold on." The moment they arrived at the emergency room, a team of doctors and nurses rushed Noah into intensive care. Emma paced outside the room, her fingers gripping the edges of her coat so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Max sat beside her, whimpering softly, his tail thumping anxiously against the floor. He didn't understand everything, but he knew something was wrong. Hours passed in agonizing silence. Finally, a doctor emerged. Emma rushed forward. "He's stable," the doctor said, offering a reassuring smile. "But it's a good thing you brought him in when you did. His oxygen levels had dropped dangerously low. If he had been left untreated for much longer..." The words trailed off, but Emma knew what they meant. Max had saved Noah's life. Emma turned to her loyal companion, dropping to her knees. "You knew," she murmured, stroking his fur, tears filling her eyes. "You saved him." Max licked her hand gently, his tail wagging as if to say, "Of course I did." But the surprises weren't over. After a series of tests, the doctors delivered news Emma never expected. "Noah's condition isn't what we originally thought," the lead pediatrician explained. "He does have a neuromuscular disorder, but it's not permanent paralysis." Emma's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The doctor smiled. "There's a chance Noah could regain movement in his legs." Emma's hands flew to her mouth, her heart hammering in her chest. "Are you saying he might walk?" "The right physical therapy, yes. It will take time, but his nerves are responsive. We have reason to believe that one day he'll stand on his own." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. She had braced herself for a lifetime of carrying her son, of watching him struggle with a body that wouldn't cooperate. And now, suddenly, there was hope. Real, tangible hope. When Noah finally woke, Emma held him close, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Max curled up beside them on the hospital bed, resting his head near Noah's tiny fingers. "You're going to be okay, baby," she whispered, kissing Noah's forehead. "And we're going to do this together." Noah cooed softly, reaching out to grasp a handful of Max's fur. The dog let out a soft huff, closing his eyes contentedly. The bond between them was unbreakable. A miracle had brought them together, and a miracle had saved them all. Over the next several months, Emma dedicated herself to Noah's therapy, celebrating every small victory. The first time he moved his foot, the first time he stood with support. Max was by his side every step of the way, nudging him forward, licking his face whenever he cried in frustration. And then, one day, it happened. Emma stood in the backyard, holding her breath, as Noah took his first independent step toward Max. The little boy wobbled, his legs uncertain, but his determination was fierce. Max sat a few feet away, his tail wagging like a drumbeat of encouragement. Then, with a giggle, Noah took another step, and another. Max let out an excited bark, bounding toward him, licking his face with pure joy. Emma fell to her knees, laughing through her tears. Noah had walked, and Max, his guardian, his hero, his best friend, had been there to see it. At that moment, Emma knew their family was complete. Miracles weren't just found in hospitals or divine interventions. Sometimes, miracles came in the form of a little boy defying the odds. Sometimes they came with 4 paws and a wagging tail. And sometimes they came when you least expected them, wrapped in love, loyalty, and the belief that anything is possible.